leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal. Dracula, you gotta love it. Anyways, I'm really lucky tonight because I'm in a darkened theater and I have next to me Dracula. Welcome to the Crossroads. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
And besides Dracula, what names do you go by?
I go by Luke.
Luke, and welcome to the Crossroads, Luke. How long have you been involved in ballet?
I've been doing ballet since I was 5, so about 18 years. So I've been doing ballet for quite some time.
That's exciting. What got you into it? Well, I'm most curious what sort of motivates people. Did ballet come to you, or did you go to ballet? What's your story?
Well, it was sort of a partial both ways. It came to me and I went to it. When I was 3, I was, a typical 3-year-old boy. I would not sit still. And my parents took me to a ballet performance and I sat still for 3.5 hours. They thought something was wrong with me. And so they were like, okay, put him into ballet. And now I'm here.
Oh, that's pretty good. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm from Ottawa originally. And so I did ballet in Ottawa until I was 18. And then I went to the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School for 3 years. And then now I'm here with Ballet Victoria.
Okay, is it the same? Is it the same Dracula performance as? Because I saw the Winnipeg Ballet, Royal Winnipeg Ballet, do that a few years back. Is it the same? Is it the same show? Is it the same performance? Do you know?
The show's not exactly the same. The story is sort of similar, but it's a little bit different. Paul has a little bit of a different take on all of the characters, so it's a little bit different than like the Winnipeg version, but it's unique in its own way because it's not the typical kind of Dracula's the bad guy. He's the bad guy, but then he's sort of not the bad guy in the end, sort of in a way, because he sort of gives up being evil at the end to let the story play out, and then Mina, who decides, okay, it's time for you to go now, and Dracula lets himself die at the end. So it's a little bit of a different take on the story, but so it's interesting, but the story is basically the same.
How does it feel to, from the looks of it, you're playing out to sold-out crowds on this tour? Does that change your sort of anticipation of what's going to happen in your performance in the evening?
Yes and no. It's one of those, I don't usually look directly at the audience, but it's nice to know when there's a full audience that, there's tons of people watching you, and it's stressful in a way, but it's also exhilarating because there's so many people watching you, but it's nice to be able to. It's a passion that I have, so it's nice to be able to share it with as many people as possible so they can watch on stage, and I just try to give everything that I have so that it's enjoyable to watch, and I hope other people enjoy the passion that I have for it as well.
I find it interesting because, when you think of ballet, you think of sort of the old standards and stuff like that, and those are pretty much, I'm sure, like for an actor, Shakespeare is sort of like, they have to, cut their teeth on that and then move in. How about this? Is this a major change from sort of the traditional ballets, or is it pretty much, are you still working just, you're doing your job and you're following the moves and the choreography and stuff like that? Is that?
Yeah, so ballet has a very strong traditional classical base, or at least classical ballet does. So this draws upon the classical technique. So the different steps are all classical ballet, and then they're just slightly modified to be a little more modern. But everything's still based on the classical technique that was developed hundreds of years ago. And so it's nice to keep that tradition going, but also move it into the future with a little bit different kinds of movements and just morphing it to suit more today's dance scene, but to still keep the traditional ballet going. So it's interesting in that way, and it's fun.
People don't realize what all the different aspects that go into it. It's nice to be here while things are being set up and everything else like that. And I know when you're sort of waiting for the performance in the evening, what is the sort of the high point of the day and the low point of the day, if I can ask?
For me, the high point of the day is actually the performance itself, because it's the chance where I actually get to be on stage and performing for everyone, which is one of the reasons that I love to do this. I love to let my passion out for other people to watch. And the low point of the day, I don't know. I kind of enjoy everything. The setup it's fun for me. I enjoy that stuff. I enjoy the takedown and then getting a chance to just relax in the evening after everything is all said and done. So there really isn't a low point. I guess the low point is when I have to go home, and then it's all over.
what you do is it goes beyond performance.
It does.
Do I call you a ballerina?
You do, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think once you get to be a little bit of a principal level, you can finally say, I am a ballerina.
Yeah.
But typically we just call ourselves ballet dancers.
Ballet dancers.
Yeah.
Because this is something that, in the modern world, like a lot of things, before it was actor, actress, and then they've kind of sort of degenderified. I'm making up words here.
Right?
And how much work goes into a performance like this tonight?
So typically they say for every hour of choreography requires 4 hours of rehearsal just to learn it. We work pretty much 9 to 5 every day and rehearse, but we put this production together in maybe 3 to 4 weeks. So we put the production together and then rehearse it, and then we're on the road or performing in Victoria, our hometown.
So this is a group. You always work together, or is it?
Yeah, we always work together. We're all from different places, but we all work together in Victoria, which is kind of nice. And we all live in Victoria, and we're like Ballet Victoria's own. Victoria has its own ballet company, which is great.
Did ballet come to you, or did you go to ballet when you first got involved?
So I was really little, and I overheard what Luke was saying, and it's a similar thing. Like, I was just running around. My mom's like, oh my God, this child needs to move. She put me in ballet lessons, and I immediately loved it. I was like, but it's rare that you hear that, but I think at 5 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a ballet dancer. I'm going to be a ballerina. And I did all kinds of different at a recreational school in the East Coast in Moncton, New Brunswick. I started at Dance East. It was like a rec school, and was doing jazz and tap and ballet. And then when I was like 11, I had a Russian teacher come in. Went to a little bit a school that focused on ballet, and then she's like, if you want to do ballet, you kind of have to audition, go to a professional ballet school, and do the whole thing. And I was just like, ballet is such an amazing art form because, in my opinion, it's the basis for all other forms of dance. Like, contemporary and it's all based off that kind of movement. And for me, ballet it's such a challenge because it's so technical. Mm-hmm. And what's great about this company is that we take that classical technique and then we add layers to it in a contemporary fashion to make it a little bit more new. And we have people that come to our ballets that have never seen classical ballet and never even seen a ballet, and they're just like, wow, that was awesome. So I think it's great. We're like educating people and getting new audiences all the time.
It's something that I was, sort of in my background in performance and like music and things like that, and having, understanding that it's a lot of work to make it look easy. Is it a lot of work to make it look easy in ballet?
You know what? You can tell that you have a background, because I think that is one of the hardest parts of ballet is that, we work so hard to make steps look completely effortless, and then guys, they lift us over, the girls over their heads, and they can't like in a gym with the weight, you can't make that sound on stage, or your partner will just be like, excuse me, did you just so I think that's the hardest part. And sometimes, like, we just finished Luke and I actually got to perform White Swan Grandpa with the symphony, Victoria Symphony, just last month. And that pas de deux, if you watch it, it's like an 8-minute pas de deux, and it's so slow, and it's so, and if I think a compliment would be to have an audience member come up to me and say, and they have before, and said, I felt like I could just go up there and do exactly what you were doing. And at first I was like I took offense to that. I was like, do you know how hard I worked to do that? Like, this was hard. But now it's like, Thank you. That's, you want to bring your audience and you want them to sit and relax and enjoy it. But if you can see the effort in every movement, I mean, there's differences. When I become a vampire in the second act, like you want strength in my movement and things like that. But in the first act, it's delicate and it should look effortless. Lifts should look effortless. Turns, partnering. That's one thing that Paul's really great at, is coaching partnering. And he doesn't want to see the effort in any of the movements, and that's what makes it so challenging, and makes me come back every day as a dancer and just be like, I can do better. I can do better. I can do better. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's what I love about this type of room. Because dance can be done. You can dance in the bar and it looks pretty bad for some people, and then some people are pretty graceful. And when it comes into a more formal environment, does it change depending on the environment you're in? Like if you're in a theater like this, or have you ever done outdoor performances? Or
We have, yeah. Actually, we've done pretty much everything. I remember dancing on carpet for Prince Edward.
On carpet
in government house. They were like, we would really love you to perform for him when he comes, and we're like, okay, that's a great opportunity, and we got to meet them, and it was wonderful. And they're like, here's your performance space, and it was like beautiful, but it was carpet and I was on point. So, but we made it work, and I think that's one thing that's really cool about dancers, is that we're adaptable. But sometimes people don't recognize that we would really like to have a Marley, a stage, like that. There are specifics that we do require. Whereas sometimes people, when they're uneducated, they don't know. They say, oh yeah, can you come dance at my cousin's wedding on the tile marble floor? And you're like, well, no.
Any words of wisdom to anyone who wants to get into your shoes, so to speak?
You know what? It's so amazing to be able to wake up every day and get to do what you love as a career. And with that, it takes a lot of hard work. And but if you have the heart, it's like people always say, oh, well, you work so hard and you push, and you're like, but that's the fun part for me, is that work and that and enjoying the journey, and not just waiting for the end result, but enjoying that work and enjoying pushing yourself every day, and loving the fact that you could actually have this as a career. You could wake up every day and put your ballet shoes on and pointe shoes on and go for it. And it's an amazing career. So I would strongly suggest, if you have the passion for it, go for it.
It's the season for strange sounds in the night, and Dracula is one of the favorites, and making Dracula happen in Courtenay is Paul. Paul, thank you for being on my show with the Crossroads. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. I'm thrilled to be doing this, so thank you for inviting me.
Ballet, is it in your blood, or is it just a sideline for you?
No, it's in our blood. It's one of those things that if you have to dance, you have to dance, and it's been a passion for me for decades. It's something that I was a professional dancer with Royal Winnipeg Ballet, and also with Alberta Ballet, and principal also with Oregon Ballet Theatre, before I took over as artistic director of Ballet Victoria in Victoria 10 years ago.
Royal Winnipeg Ballet, I spent some time in Winnipeg. I knew some of the dancers from way back when I was there, and so I know it, besides its fame and everything else, and I know anyone who's come out of that place has got, as they call it, street cred. What I've asked your dancers, and I'm going to ask you, what found whom? Did you find ballet, or did ballet find you?
No, I kind of had an epiphany. Like, I had a friend of mine just said, I was in track and field and played volleyball, and I wanted to work on flexibility and coordination. And a friend of mine said, oh, you should come take ballet. And I was always pretty good at picking up sports, and then I took a ballet class. I could not pick it up to save my life. I felt like completely disabled almost. So, and I like a challenge. And for me, it was just like the level of coordination required, the level of computing your brain has to do, and it's artistic, and there's music, and there's theater, and there's like it's dramatically powerful, musically powerful, and it keeps you fit and it keeps you sharp. I was like, wow, and that's a job? Where do I sign up?
There's Andrea I was talking with that was saying that you're very strong in the partnering of dancers. What is do you have any secret, or is there a reason why you went to, that's a specialty for you?
It's something that I love. Like, I love the partnering. I think that to take a beautiful ballerina and enhance essentially your abilities is what you want to do without being noticed, without interfering. And often men will tend to over partner and paddle the girl, or like kind of make it look very physical when they're lifting. In my whole career I danced with women that were too tall for me, but I love dancing. And so you develop strength and you develop coordination, and I developed technique to use if I have a dancer that was like too tall, but I mean too tall is just that you can barely reach, like they're almost my height, and you want them to be able to do the same as if you have a small partner. So you develop techniques, speed and coordination, and where you put your hands and how you use your body as a counterweight. And it's funny because I did a lot of martial arts when I was younger, and in judo in particular, where you actually, like aikido, you use the opponent's strength to take him off balance. In the same way, in ballet, you do the same thing to take him off balance and bring them off balance, and obviously not throw them to the floor, but lift them and spin them around and then put them back right on their spot. And so it's a little bit different than a lot of the training that is given in classical ballet, but it speeds the ability of the dancers much faster, and then you don't notice the partnering. So you don't have somebody that's kind of busy behind the girl, and you see that. It just looks like nothing, and the girl spins, she floats, she flies, and you actually start doing more turn. And the bonus with that is that the women are actually developing more confidence in her own ability, because you're not there holding things. So she feels like you barely touch her, and she does 4, 5, 6 pirouettes. So then when she's by herself, she's comfortable doing 3, 4, 5 sometimes. And naturally at a certain point, like, I'm doing too many, like something's going to happen. But now they ride their center. They're familiar with being on balance, which is, for women on point, it's a tiny little spot. It's like the size of a toonie that they have to, that their center, which is around their belly button, has to be right on top of that spot while they're moving, balancing, turning. So it's precision, and that the ability of understanding pas de deux and keeping the girl on her leg makes women feel more comfortable with their own balance, their own center, because you're not always interfering with it. So they build a kind of a natural movement. And the result has been very interesting, because I give my dancers some very, very technical partnering and very technical choreography. But when they watch it on the video, they go, "Oh yeah, that looks easy. I can do that." And then they learn it. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's so fast. We can't keep up. Oh, it's so hard." But that's because you've taken all the labor out of the physicality. It's still there, but it's hidden with the technique. And that's beautiful to me, because then the audience is completely into your performance as an artist. They're not noticing the steps as much. And then they get excited. I think dance changes and evolves all the time. And I think there's a bit of a stigma for the audience as ballet being, everybody thinks it's Nutcracker. And then there is an audience that, it's, well, we want more, new things. But often they haven't gone, because the first experience for ballet is often Nutcracker. And even our Nutcracker is contemporary, it's different, it makes sense to today's audience, because most traditional Nutcracker, they're racist, inappropriate, there's so many weird things about these old pieces. Like, it's like old cartoons, and they've changed a lot of things. Nobody's smoking in some of those cartoons anymore, or drinking, they've traded their cigarette for a piece of straw or whatever. So there is little things like that. And classical ballet has some they can be very long, and like opera, people have a misconception that it can be boring and elitist. And most of the time it's not. And in contemporary dance and contemporary ballet today, it's much more accessible to everyone. Now, having said that, in order to draw audiences, you have to, especially in North America, you have to be a bit of a salesperson. So like things like Dracula, it's well known. Things like Peter Pan. So you have to do some work to kind of draw the audience with something that they're familiar with. But then what I do is that in the choreography that I use traditional classical technique and point work and partnering, but I bring in some surprising elements, whether it's musically, choreographically. So it sensitizes people to dance like, oh, I didn't think about it. So you create a surprise, and the audience enjoys that. Yeah. And I never talk down to the audience. So even if it sounds like it's going to be, it might be a show for children. No, there is like good cartoons, there is jokes for adults, there is adult content, and you can take it at the first degree, and it's just, it's like a Bram Stoker's Dracula kind of. Or you can see the different levels that the characters are going through, the development, their insecurity, their love, their passion, their despair. It's there. And if you know nothing about ballet, you'll enjoy the steps. If you're a ballet aficionado, you'll recognize the difficulty of the steps and the amazing talent of these dancers. So I try, and I showcase everybody. I try to not just, even the corps de ballet, they're not just doing some simple steps in the back. Like for me, they're part of the performance. The frame of the work has to be almost as good as the work itself. So, and then they feel like they're contributing. So they give more because they're dancing their heart out. So to me, it's just a win-win. So, and then I can have some other programs which are a little bit more, pushing the envelope, where people are like, it's like they've seen what I cook. They've seen that I've included some exotic dish in the normal meal, what they expect. So now I can say, hey, come over. I've got like an exotic dinner for you. But now they're going to be okay with it because he hasn't done anything that bad yet. Yes. So our stomach, we're okay with it. So you build it. And it's funny because it's a tricky balance to maintain, because contemporary dance is very strong in BC, and ballet has been kind of tossed out the window. A bit like probably Quebec did 20 years, or even Ontario 20 years ago. And then they all backpedaled. So we're like about 20 years behind, maybe a little bit. But it's just an evolution. But what we have to be careful is that the work that we do is not just, and that's why I'm going back to the audience that you mentioned, is that it can't be so self-indulging that as artists we're exploring new paths, new ways of moving, and then it starts looking like gymnastic to digestive noises. And then you've alienated your audience. And your audience is who, gives meaning to your work. Because you can have a great work. It's like you're a painter. If your painting goes in the basement and no one sees them, you're irrelevant. The dance has to be relevant to today's audience. And there is room for exploration. But when everybody's doing the same thing, there's no more innovation, because everybody's innovative, and they're also innovative, they end up doing the same thing. So I like to kind of, with our work and with Ballet Victoria, is make it accessible. And that's one of the first things I do without ever talking down to people. Like the craft has to be high, the level of artistry has to be high. And yes, I'll be kind of like ostracized because, you're doing Peter Pan, or you're doing, but we do other works too, or you're doing Nutcracker and stuff. Yes, but in the work is where you can have like the intelligence, the messages, and you can turn anything into something interesting. It's not like the commercial thing. But you do have to have a commercial sense, otherwise we wouldn't survive as a non-for-profit, because certainly the government funding isn't there. Yeah. So you have to be a kind of clever, and especially when you are a new organization, otherwise you're just like, for me, one of the biggest focus is the artist. Like we have so many companies in BC that are little project companies. So they hire a few dancers, and then for 6 weeks they do a little show, and then it's done. And where do they go? In dance, you have to dance to be good at dancing. So if you don't dance, your level is never going to grow. And that's why these artists, because we work for 42 weeks, so 44, 46, which is unique in BC. There's no other company. We do 4 productions. and then another 2 or 3 with other groups. So they're continually dancing, continually learning repertoire. They become increasingly better technically and artistically. Then of course I lose them. They get poached by big companies.
Right.
And I'm thrilled that I've had dancers being taken by international company like Alonzo King Lines in San Francisco, which is a company that has a global reputation. Les Grands Ballets Canadiens in Montreal. Alberta Ballet, and even Royal Winnipeg Ballet, they look at some of my dancers going, I can poach that.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't compete with the salaries, but it is good. It means that the dancers that come here to work with us are develop a craft and a talent and a little bit of a side training that makes them very valuable. So I'm thrilled about that. Although I have to continue renewing my roster. It's a bit like the minor feeding the major leagues kind of thing. Just when your team gets really good and you have a chance to win,
Take another one.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. Well, looking forward to the performance, and Paul, I'm so glad that you could take some time out from rehearsals and everything else today, and we're going to share some more of the show on my show of your performance, and look forward to talking to you again here at the Crossroads. I'm Martin at the Crossroads, and that's again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have some bright questions and interest. It's not often that you have time to actually talk about your craft. It's always, so what's up? I'm like, okay, good, and now the news.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do here with my show, is that people don't really have the opportunity to sort of have a little more in depth of what's going on, and it's something where I've been working in media for so many years that I've seen a lot of this, what goes on behind the scenes, and
it's great. It's so generous of you to do this, to be interested and disinterested. That's what I think TV needs more of.
And that's what life's all about, is let television show us that there's a world out there too, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Cheers.
All right.